All right, let's dive into something that can seriously clear up confusion. UML activity diagrams. Ever tried to explain a complex workflow and just tied yourself in knots? Yeah, this one's for you.
You know the feeling, right? You're trying to walk someone through a process at work, and you can just see their eyes start to glaze over. It's really hard to keep all the steps straight in your head, let alone explain them to somebody else.
And that right there is the exact problem activity diagrams solve. The best way to think of them is like a flowchart on steroids. They give you a crystal clear visual map of a process showing you not just the steps, but how everything actually connects together.
Okay, so how do we actually read one of these things? Well, like any good map, you gotta know the symbols. Activity diagrams have their own simple language, so let's get into the basic building blocks. First things first, every process has to start somewhere and end somewhere. In these diagrams, we always kick things off with a simple, solid-filled circle. That's our start. And we finish up at what looks kind of like a bullseye, the filled circle inside another circle. That's the end. Easy, right?
Now for the real heart of the diagram, the activity. This is just a rounded rectangle, and it represents any single thing that needs to get done. A task, an action, you name it. This is the work part of the workflow.
So, for instance, an activity could be something as simple as calculate registration fees. It's one clear, defined task. Every one of these rounded rectangles you see is a piece of the puzzle, a job getting done. So, you've got all these activities. How do we get from one to the next? With a transition. These arrows are literally the pathways on our map. They show you the direction of the flow, guiding you from one completed task to the start of the very next one.
But let's be real, workflows are almost never a straight line. You have to make choices, and that's where the decision node comes in. This little diamond shape is a fork in the road, a point where the path splits based on some condition.
A perfect, everyday example is a simple check. Is the form filled correctly? From that diamond, you're going to have at least two arrows coming out, one for yes and one for no, and each one will lead you down a totally different path. This is how we map out choices.
Okay, let's level up. In the real world, things are kind of messy. Lots of stuff often has to happen at the exact same time. And activity diagrams have a really brilliant way of showing this. This is called a fork. It's just a thick black bar. When your process hits a fork, it splits into multiple paths that all happen at once, in parallel. Think of it as a starting gun for a bunch of different activities to begin simultaneously.
And of course, if you can split a process apart, you need a way to bring it back together. That's what a join is for. It's another thick bar, but this one acts like a checkpoint. It literally waits for all those parallel activities to finish before it lets the process continue on as a single path. It's all about synchronization.
Okay, now this is a really important distinction, so pay attention here. A join waits. It's strict. It will not let the process move forward until every single parallel task is done. A merge, on the other hand, doesn't wait for anything. It just funnels different paths back into one. So remember, join synchronizes, merge just merges. And finally, one of my favorite parts, swim lanes. These are basically partitions on the diagram. You can think of them like lanes in a swimming pool, where each lane belongs to a different person, a department, or even a computer system. It instantly tells you who is responsible for what.
All right, that's enough theory. Let's see how all these building blocks actually work together. We're going to map out a pretty common process, student enrollment, to see how it all comes to life.
So for our case study, we've got three main players, or actors: the student, the registrar, and the automated system. And these three are going to be our swim lanes, making it super clear who's doing what at every step.
So the process kicks off pretty simply. First, the student fills in their enrollment form. Once that's done, the flow moves over to the registrar's lane, where their job is to check that form.
And right after the registrar's check, we hit our first decision point, that diamond. Is the form correct, or is something wrong with it? The answer to that question is going to send the workflow in two very different directions.
So let's follow the happy path. The form is correct, the process moves to the system swim lane, which automatically creates a student record. And right after that, we hit a fork. This is where the magic of efficiency really begins.
And look at all the stuff that can happen at the same time now. The student can go pay their fees while the admin office is working on their hostel room. The medical check can get scheduled, the library card can be issued, the ID card can be printed. None of these have to wait for the others. It's multitasking, visualized.
And this is where those swim lanes just make everything so obvious. You can glance at the diagram and see it all. The student lane has activities like pay fees.
The registrar lane has check form. The system lane handles creating records. There is absolutely no ambiguity about who owns what part of the process.
So, why does any of this matter? Because being able to map things out like this is an incredibly valuable skill. It's about taking a complex, messy process that lives in people's heads and turning it into a single, clear picture that everybody can agree on.
So, let's just quickly recap. Activity diagrams help you model business workflows with amazing clarity. They show you the exact flow from one step to the next, they let you accurately represent things happening in parallel, and with swim lanes, they make responsibilities perfectly clear. Bottom line, they turn chaos into order. And that brings me to a final question for you. Think about your own work, or a side project, or even just planning a big event. What's one complicated process that you could make a whole lot clearer for everyone just by drawing a few circles, rectangles, and arrows?